Howdy meeps, I'm Rigaroga and you're you, and this is dun 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 Dungeons and Dragons versus Rick and Morty. Wubba lubba dubba. Or wubba lubba D&D. Yeah, anyhow. Thanks for dropping in, and this is the beginning. This is actually technically the first adventure, the first session of the actual game. I have printed out for my own use maps that I'm going to use as we go through, but I want to go ahead and I have the character sheets and stuff like that. I also have the character sheets up on D&D Beyond, which you can see. Actually, I think it's on the wrong. Yeah, so I've got Meatface Placeholder. I've got Lyan Amaranthia, Keth Silverson, Kiir Bravian, and Ari Strongbow, all set up on D&D Beyond for my reference, and then we have the actual adventure on D&D Beyond as well as physical, like the actual physical copy, and then I've got the wacky colored dice all set up. I do have also, I should probably mention that I'll be using the pyramids from Looney Labs as minis, as I am wont to do. I also have prepared combat cards from Arcane Library for the characters and monsters, and I think I got them all. And other stuff set up, but that's how we're gonna go. We're gonna start, and so I think let's go ahead. Actually, I wanna just. I mean, the character of this thing is totally hilarious. This would be a lot of fun in a group of fans. But down here, like for example, it says, disclaimer, we at Wizards of the Coast here on Earth C-132 do not agree with our mirror selves on Earth 141. Rick Sanchez was not, nor ever will be, considered the greatest fucking Dungeons and Dragons game designer of all time, even if he does have that very quote tattooed across his entire back, which is evidently how you qualify for jobs in C-141. And it's just ridiculous, the whole thing. It's worth picking up just as a fan, sort of as a memento. But let's go ahead and dive in to the introduction. This book is written for the Dungeon Master. Now, I am playing solo, so, obviously I have characters contained, what they know, and versus what you and I know, from the adventure and stuff like that. So it contains a complete Dungeons and Dragons adventure, as well as descriptions of every creature and magical item in the adventure. I think there's only one special magical item that comes in this adventure. And I was a little bit disappointed, honestly. If you look at D&D Beyond, the images of the characters weren't available. I had to actually import those, and there's no puke green yellow background for the character sheets. This is just normal character sheet backgrounds. They didn't add anything special, which is kind of disappointing, I gotta admit. So anyhow, as this is set in the world of Rick and Morty, much of the adventure beyond this introduction and the book's appendices were written by Rick Sanchez. While Rick's encounters are wildly unpredictable and sometimes include his outlandish viewpoints, this adventure generally works as any other D&D adventure would, or adventure world. There's just more in-character narration from the author and a lot more butt jokes. The experience here is meant to feel slapstick and wild, so try not to take things too seriously. Additionally, if you feel the need to paraphrase any of Rick's descriptions or cut back on his personal editorializing, feel free. You have a better sense of what your players will enjoy than Rick does. The rulebook in this box set contains everything you will need to adjudicate the situations as they arise during play. As this adventure is more frantic than most, don't worry about messing up. The adventure is all about seat of your pants action. So if there's a rules slip up, just roll with it. And if at any point you're uncertain how to proceed, just refer to the Dungeon Master Tips section. Running this adventure Lost Dungeon of Rickedness, Big Rick Energy is an adventure for 4 to 5 characters of first level. I am the player and the DM, so I will be running all of the characters, and there are 5 that come pre-gen with it. During the course of the adventure, the characters will advance to 3rd level. See the leveling up for details of when that's best for the characters to advance. If I remember correctly, the advice is just like 1/3 of the way through, you're going to level up. So at some milestone, I'll just level the characters up and then update their D&D Beyond profile. And so we'll have that additional information and additional abilities as we go through. Well, the Rulebook provides you with everything you need to create your own characters. This adventure assumes players are using the Rick and Morty pre-generated characters provided in this box set. If they're not, that's fine, but players might want to consider why their characters find themselves on an adventure in the unpredictable world of Rick and Morty. Or not. And just be prepared for whatever weirdness comes their way. If this is your first time running a D&D adventure, read the Role of the Dungeon Master section. It will help you to better understand your roles and responsibilities. Role of the Dungeon Master. And this is actually a pretty good section. The Dungeon Master DM has a special role in Dungeons and Dragons game. DM is referee. When it's not clear what ought to happen next, the DM decides how to apply the rules and keep the story going. The DM is a narrator. The DM sets the pace of the story and presents the various challenges and encounters the players might overcome. The DM is the player's interface to the D&D world, as well as the one who reads and sometimes also writes the adventure and describes what happens in response to the character's actions. The DM plays monsters. The DM plays the monsters and villains the adventurers battle against, choosing their actions and rolling dice for their attacks. And the DM also plays the part of all the other characters the players meet in the course of their adventures, like the prisoner in the goblin lair or the innkeep in town. Although the DM controls the monsters and villains in the adventure, the relationship between the players and the DM isn't adversarial. The DM's job, well, unless you're Rick, I guess, the DM's job is to challenge the characters with interesting encounters and tests and keep the game moving and apply the rules fairly. The most important thing to remember about being a good DM is that the rules are tools to help you have a good time. These rules aren't in charge. You're the DM, you're in charge of the game. Guide the play experience and the use of the rules so that everyone has fun. Many players of Dungeons & Dragons find that being the DM is the best part of the game. With the information in this adventure, you'll be prepared to take on that role for your group. Choosing a Dungeon Master. Who should be the Dungeon Master? I will. Whoever wants to be. The person with the most drive to pull a group together and start the game often ends up being the DM, but that doesn't have to be the case. And here's Dungeon Master tips. And I find these to be pretty good. As the Dungeon Master, you're the final authority when it comes to rules, questions, and disputes during the game. Here are some guidelines to help you arbitrate issues as they come up. When in doubt, make it up. It's better to keep the game moving than to get bogged down in the rules. And as a solo player, I may do all sorts of weird, funky stuff without knowing that I'm doing something funky, but I may do something funky unintentional. It's not a competition. The DM isn't competing against the player characters. You're there to run the monsters, referee the rules, and keep the story moving. It's a shared story. It's the group story, so let the players contribute to the outcome through their actions of their characters, and Dungeons & Dragons is about imagination and coming together to tell a story as a group. Let the players participate in the storytelling, and that's great advice. Everyone should take part of it. Create an interesting narrative. Be consistent. If you decide that a rule works a certain way in one session, make sure that it works that way in the next time it comes into play, if you can remember. Make sure everyone is involved. Ensure every character has a chance to shine. Some players are reluctant to speak up, and remember to ask them what their characters are doing. And also, players who speak out of turn and talk over other players, you need to make sure that the quiet players actually get to go too. And be fair. Use your powers as Dungeon Master only for good. Oh man, I quit. Forget this. Treat the rules and the players in a fair and impartial manner. Never. Not going to happen. Pay attention. Make sure you look around the table occasionally to see if the game is going well. If everyone seems to be having fun, relax, keep going. If the fun is waning, it might be time for a break, or you can try to liven things up somehow. And then as far as improvising ability checks, the easy is DC 10, moderate DC 15, hard is DC 20. I was recently reading about taking 10 and taking 20 from older editions, and I might try to start incorporating that in my solo session. I mean, an easy DC is basically, any of the characters are going to pass that. It's pretty much only the rolls that have a failure that does something interesting that really matters. So I got to try and think about that, how that works as I'm thinking about ability checks and stuff. There is a GM screen that I'm not. I thought about laying it out, but I'm not going to. And then the adventure map, and then I've printed out a bunch of the different sheets. So this is the first little bit. There are the 5 pre-generated characters that I'll be using, and those are Meatface, a human fighter, Meatface Placeholder, played by Mr. Poopy Pants, or Poopy Butthole, Lyan Amaranthia, Wood Elf Cleric, Keth Silverson, a half-orc rogue, played by Morty, Lions, played by Beth, Kiir Bravian, half-elf wizard, played by Jerry, and Ari Strongbow, half-elf fighter, played by Summer. So I have those characters ready to go on cards, and then I have the character sheets on D&D Beyond, and I have the character sheets in person as well. But so those are our 5 characters, and I've got those set up for initiative tracking. But I need to figure out what the characters' colors are. This green is obvious, or blue is obviously Rick's hair. So do those show up pretty good separately from each other? I think those do. And then we'll do another color. How about yellow? Yeah, those yellow's a little bit light. Well, maybe we'll do the orange. Yeah, so we'll do orange. So let's figure out which of these characters are which. Let's see. Let's make, so Lion is blue. Let's make Kiir red. So this is going to be Kiir. Keth is going to be orange. Ari Strongbow is going to be green. So this is going to be Ari. And Meatface Placeholder is going to be purple. So that's going to be, those are our characters.